Too slow with that move. I did not see that counter coming at all, but I am certainly going to recover quickly. I have been training for this moment my entire life. That may be true, but you are still not ready for the speed of my counter-strike. Why did the punch get a promotion at work? Because it was really good at hitting its targets and making a strong impact every single day. Why do fighters always jump into battle? Because they want to make sure they land on their feet. Why do fighters never play hide and seek? Because good fighters are always easy to spot, but they are impossible to catch when they start moving. Why do programmers prefer dark mode? Because the light attracts bugs. You are not going to win this fight today! That is exactly what you think. But my training has prepared me for this moment. Why do we tell actors to break a leg? Because every play has a cast. Why do fighters always look for the exit? Because they want to punch out early. That is a really bad joke for a fight. Why do fighters always bring a weapon to a fist fight? Because they want to make sure they get the last laugh in the final round.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired from all the training, but your footwork is looking much sharper tonight than it was yesterday.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. I think we should get back to our fight before we get too bored. Why do they call it a fighting game? Because you have to punch your way to the top of the leaderboards while dodging every single hit from your opponent. And why did the superhero bring a ladder to the fight? Because he wanted to take the battle to the next level of justice. Why do superheroes make bad comedians? Because they always try to punch up their jokes, but they never quite land the right impact. Why do superheroes get along so well? Because they always know how to save the day and never forget to have a super time while doing it. Why did the superhero bring a ladder to the fight? Because he wanted to take his combat skills to the next level. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired of standing around all day while these heroes kept fighting on the roof. Why did the punch go to school? Because it wanted to get a little bit better at landing a knockout lesson in every single fight. Why do fighters always choose the rain to settle their scores? Because the lightning adds a bit of flair to the knockout. Why did the martial artist bring a ladder to the fight? Because he heard the stakes were getting a little bit too high for him. Why do we fall so we can learn to pick ourselves up? Not today. Not while I am still standing here in this dark night. Why do scientists not trust atoms? I have no idea why. Because they make up everything. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. Just like you will be when I am finished with this fight here tonight. Why did the punch get into a fight with the wall? Because it wanted to see if the wall was a pushover. Why do we fall? To learn how to pick ourselves up. Not today. Because I am keeping you down on the ground where you belong. Why do fighters never play hide and seek? Because they can never find a good place to hide. Plus, they are always getting into punches. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Why do tennis players keep score if they are always arguing about it? I suppose it is just their way of serving up a little drama. Why do we fall? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up. Sometimes, the most important lesson is not how we win, but how we recover. Why did the punch get a promotion at work? Because it was great at hitting all of its targets and making a strong impact on the team. Why did the punch break up with the kick? Because it felt like it was losing its impact in the heat of the battle. You are not ready for this fight. I have been training for this moment my entire life. Watch out, because he is moving way too fast. Why do fighters never play hide and seek? Because they can never find a good place to hide when they are always looking for a fight. Why do we fall so we can learn to pick ourselves up? I think I have learned my lesson. Please do not hit me again. Why did the punch break up with the kick? Because it felt like they were just going through the motions instead of really connecting? Why do we fall, Bruce? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up. I have learned enough for one day, but the fight is never over. You should have known better than to challenge me in my own city. I did not realize you were actually going to show up tonight. Why do we fall so we can learn to pick ourselves back up? I think I have learned my lesson. Please stop the kicking. Why do scientists not trust atoms? I suppose it is because they make up everything in the universe, which makes them quite untrustworthy indeed. Why do they always try to stand back up after I knock them down? Maybe they just enjoy getting beaten by a professional like you. Why do you look so surprised, friend? Because I never expected you to be this quick on your feet. Watch your next move closely now. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired, just like you are going to be after this fight ends in my victory today. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired, just like you are going to be after this match concludes.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired, just like you are going to be after this fight ends in defeat.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired, just like you are going to be after I finish this fight on this rooftop tonight. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. Why do fighters always look so grumpy? Because they take everything too seriously. Maybe they just need a good joke to lighten the mood. Why do they call it a game of cat and mouse when the cat is clearly losing? Maybe because the mouse has a few tricks up his sleeve.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired, just like you are going to be after this fight ends in a moment.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired, and apparently so are you after that hit.
Why did the superhero bring a ladder to the fight? Because he wanted to take the combat to the next level and reach new heights of justice. I think you have finally met your match today. You keep telling yourself that while I prepare to end this little game once and for all. You are not going to win this time. I have heard that before, and yet here we are playing this little game once again.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. Why do we always have to settle things like this in the rain? Because the drama is much better when we are soaking wet, don't you think? Why are you trying so hard today? Because you never know when the game might finally come to an end, and I want to finish it properly. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired! That is not very funny, but I guess it works for our training session today.
เป็นคนไก่แห้งน้ำมีเดาใครสอมในทำนี้ให้กองกามทีแห้งเริ่มไล่คนเดินนึงไล่มีค่ำถึงคอมพีได้เปิดหนังแห้งใน
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. That is exactly how you feel after a long day of fighting crime.
You are not going to win this fight today. That is exactly what you think every time, but I always seem to have the last laugh.
Why do scientists not trust atoms? Because they make up everything.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired, just like you seem to be after taking that last hit. Let us dance.
Why do we always fight like this? Because it is the only way we know how to settle our differences in this city. Truly remarkable. Why do you keep resisting the inevitable chaos? Because someone has to hold the line while you dance in the shadows of your own making. Why do we always have to fight? Because you never know when to stop, and I am the one who brings order to this chaotic city. Why do we tell actors to break a leg? Why do fighters never play hide and seek? Because every play has a cast. Because good fighters are always spotted. Because it was too tired of all this fighting in the alleyway, so it decided to just take a nap. Because their whole